Ladies and gentlemen, it's with great sadness that I inform you that George W. Bush and Mitt Romney won't vote for Trump. Oh my God, that's so horrible. Oh, what happened to our republic? What happened to our republic? This is exactly why I'm voting for president. One of the main reasons I'm voting for President Trump is because George W. Bush will not vote for him. Okay? And there's even talk of George W. voting for Botox Biden, who will not be nominee. I don't care if he gets every single delegate before the convention. And he already technically won the nomination, which is a complete charade anyway. But you don't win anything. Or not technically, presumptive, or no, excuse me. He has enough delegates to win, but those delegates have to officially vote for him. And we already heard from the DNC spokeswoman that they're not officially voting for Biden. Those aren't my words, those are her words, with Bill Hemmer on Fox. But Hillary Clinton is going to be nominee, ladies and gentlemen. This charade is just that, a charade. But we'll get to that, you know me, in a little bit. To my super chat, thank you. Subscribe, ladies and gentlemen, to H.A. Goodman's Hyperbole Translator and H.A. Goodman's other channel. Just the news cycle has been somewhat bizarre, so I will either have new segments either tonight or tomorrow morning on both channels. And we're going to ramp up the content on both channels because the next 6 months is going to be a battle for the soul of the country. It's going to be a battle for the soul of this nation. And you better believe that you don't want George W. Bush on your side. He was the worst president we've ever had. The absolute worst president that we've ever had. People say Hoover because of the Depression, and no, he was the worst president. And you look at what a leader is supposed to do. A leader is not supposed to create havoc and mayhem for future generations. Okay, 20 years ago, we, the country began this never-ending military conflict to keep us safe. And what it ended up doing is making the world a lot less safe. And this has nothing to do with the courageous and heroic and brave and honorable men and women and their families who served in the United States military. This has to do with people in the United States government that that said, "Oh, we're going to utilize this intelligence. We have this intelligence that says that we have to go in right now, and there's no other possibility other than engaging in a counterinsurgency conflict for 20 years, because that's exactly what took place. Nissan, have you started changing your mind yet about the message board? No, I haven't. Thank you so very much, though. I mean, with President Trump, not only went after Jeff Sessions like he usually does, but he went after John Huber. But Nissan, thank you so very much for your for your generosity and for your support. That was just yet another bizarre element of this past couple of years. But George Bush is not voting for President Trump. Nissan, thank you. George Bush is not voting for President Trump. Actually, Nissan, if you'd like, watch the debate Eric H526 has. It's it's pretty hilarious. It's a debate with me and some one person who really likes the message board. But yeah, I'm against all message boards. Any message board I'm against, especially that one. But Nissan, thank you. George W. Bush is the reason that President Trump won. When they say, I would say that I would, one of my arguments in 2016, which is why I could never vote for Clinton, and one of the reasons that in the Hill, the Huffington Post, Salon, other publications, one of the reasons, and then the Federalist in the past year, one of the reasons that I said I could never vote for Clinton is because I didn't see a difference between George W. Bush and Hillary Clinton. Who will be nominee? Well, it's not going to be Biden. I will have made the biggest political call of all time, people. It's actually working out to set the stage for the biggest political call of all time, because everyone's like, and he won, right? March 17th, this is a formality. After March 17th, he basically wrapped up the nomination, technically. But they still have to vote for their nominee. They're not going to go into November, because the man is going to have to speak, people. This is what, I don't get. He's going to have to speak, and whenever he does speak, it's like a train wreck. And so, aside from, we have Tara Reid, we have Burisma, tell me what he's accomplished. I want to know. The difference between him and Clinton is that, well, it doesn't, with Madam Secretary, you don't need to look at accomplishments, because the way they sell that is, well, first female president. So what's going to happen is he will get a VP. It could be Hillary Clinton. Okay, because Val Demings, if you look, had a history at the Orlando police as police chief of constant scandal and controversy regarding excessive force. So that'll be interesting how Democrats pull the, with Kavanaugh believe, but then with Tara Reid don't believe. They always go and twist themselves into pretzels, trying to justify how they've done away with their alleged value system. So George W. Bush and Mitt Romney, two sides of the same coin. Paul Ryan, Mitt Romney, George W. Bush, Jeff Flake, John McCain. This is not the notion that Democrats have that, Trump is doing things that other Republicans would never do. Yeah, exactly. That's why he won. The reason I'm voting for President Trump, and you can look below in the pinned comment, I write in the Federalist why Bernie supporters should vote for President Trump. The reason I'm voting for President Trump is because he's the antithesis of George W. Bush. George W. Bush is the antithesis of a leader. George W. Bush got this country into a 20-year endless counterinsurgency quagmire in numerous countries. This is not like people say, it's just like, Germany and Japan. No, it's not. President Trump is removing troops from Germany, which is fantastic. Not all the troops, but, thousands, 9,000 or so. So, so you have, ladies and gentlemen, this, what they do, and I'll read you the New York Times article in a moment. I'll read you the New York Times article. If you look at the way the arguments from Democrats are the following: appeals to authority. There's a lot of people who believe this, a lot of people who believe that. And they constantly say, well, look, even Republicans aren't voting for Trump. Yeah, that's why he's going to win in November. That's exactly why he's going to win in November. See, Democrats do not understand. They don't understand, nor do they care. They don't understand, and they don't care about why people vote Trump. Old school dad, man. H.A. Biden campaign had an ad on right before you went live. It was as horrible as you would expect. Old school dad, man. Biden, when they say these things like, oh yeah, well, my goodness, look at the polling numbers. He's up by a wider margin in the history of polling. That's like when they said, Madam Secretary is the most qualified person of all time. The difference is that Biden has less than $100 million. Trump has $255 million. He's over 2-1 in terms of a money advantage. And Biden has no enthusiasm. There's a 35 to 40% enthusiasm gap. Now, Hillary Clinton had 50-something% of her voters very enthusiastic. Biden has a little over 30%. And President Trump has around 70%. So, old school dad man, the people who are voting for Trump are enthusiastic, and they're doing so for a reason, because they know media completely spins every single possible story. Every single possible story they spin. And it's like they didn't impeach President Trump on any legal statute. He broke no legal statute. They say, oh, he's a lawless president. Well, what law did he break? Because they could impeach him again. Let's do it again. I don't care. It's actually hilarious. I want to know a law he broke. Because they've been investigating Trump under the guise of legislation. And the second he investigates any of them, it's literally a national security nightmare. Oh, my God. How could he investigate Biden? Well, you're investigating. They're investigating Trump's tax returns that the United States, that the IRS already has. The government literally has his tax returns, and suddenly they all became CPAs, and they want to look at Trump's tax returns. Initially, it was under the guise of, well, you might be a Russian agent. So the whole thing's a bunch of nonsense. The whole thing's a bunch of nonsense. You have a situation where they have nothing other than apoplectic, hysterical, fuming, seething contempt. They only dislike Trump. That's their only argument. And hyperbole, which is why, you should watch H.A. Goodman's Hyperbole Translator. I'm like a Rosetta Stone for the apoplectic Democratic media machine. That's all the only thing they can do. The only thing they can do is yell at the top of their lungs that Trump is an authoritarian, while at the same time acting like authoritarians, blaming Russia for their problems. But here, vote for Trump. These Republican leaders aren't on the bandwagon. See, when the New York Times runs this, they don't realize that it's like an ad for President Trump. They don't get it. They have no clue. They really have no clue. They're clueless. They have no clue. Thank you, Eric H526. Luke St. Martin, thank you. Eric H526, thank you. Former President George W. Bush and Senator Mitt Romney won't support Mr. Trump's reelection. And other GOP officials are mulling a vote for Joe Biden. Good, do it. Why would this be a bad thing? I want to know why it would be a bad thing to have GOP officials vote for Biden. That would be, well, first of all, they're going to end up voting for Hillary Clinton. It's not going to be Biden. They would lose miserably with Biden. They would lose miserably. I'm talking they wouldn't even get the popular vote. The second Joe Biden is given a platform, people either fall asleep or they decide to do the laundry, or they start laughing hysterically, or they say, my God. Or they say, hey, it's not that big of a deal, Trump is worse. Nobody ever says, Right on, exactly. Nobody ever says, wow, that really made sense from Joe Biden. And the media is propping him up like you cannot believe. Anything he says swept under the rug. Just the other day, 3 days before George Floyd was murdered, 3 days before, Biden made the comment, if you can't decide who to vote for, me or Trump, then you ain't black. And there was no subtext there. There was no nuance. There was no you really have to kind of assign some kind of malicious intent. No, the whole thing was malicious. The whole thing was pure malice. The whole thing was pure malice, what he said, demanding a loyalty and allegiance. And then 3 days later, George Floyd was murdered in a Democratic-run city with a Justin Trudeau wannabe mayor. And you have a Democratic governor, and you have 2 Democratic senators, including Amy Klobuchar, who literally did not prosecute the man who took George Floyd's life. So here, Washington, it was one thing in 2016 for top Republicans to take a stand against Donald Trump for president. He wasn't likely to win anyway, the thinking went, and there was no ongoing conservative governing agenda that would be endangered. By the way, these Republicans are like completely lame that don't vote. So he had how many federal judges? Over 200 federal judges, conservative federal judges, and 2 Supreme Court nominees. So you've protected the Second Amendment. Hidden for time. I gave myself a do-it-yourself haircut. You did a bit better. The hair salon was actually open. I called it up, and I was like, oh, my God. It was fantastic. I felt so good. Hidden for time. Thank you. I'm sure it looks fine. Hidden for time. I'm sure it looks fine. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Hidden for time. Hidden for time, thank you. The 2020 campaign is different. Opposing the sitting president of your own party means putting policy priorities at risk. In this case, appointing conservative judges, sustaining business-friendly regulations, and cutting taxes, as well as incurring the volcanic wrath of Mr. Trump. The volcanic wrath. This is part of the mythology. To go up against Trump, they didn't have any specific. This is one of the reasons he'll win. He'll defeat Clinton again. It ain't going to be Biden, because you can just plug in anyone and they would get the media coverage Biden would get. Then any rebuttal that says, "Well, nobody likes Clinton." Well, you know what? Nobody likes Biden, and Clinton has a voting base. Biden doesn't. They would literally be tanking the popular vote. He would not get the popular vote. Because he can't even campaign. You heard, he's like, you know the deal. The guy cannot, there's not a person on the planet, left or right, there's not a person on the planet who looks at Biden and says, yeah, that person, he's really serious about campaigning. It's an obvious charade, but anyway. But far sooner than they expected, growing numbers of prominent Republicans are debating how far to go and revealing that they won't back his reelection, or might even vote for Joe Biden, the presumptive Democratic nominee. They're feeling a fresh urgency because of Mr. Trump's incendiary response. What was his incendiary response? I want to know. 15 minutes before the curfew, after officers were targeted by the wonderful, peaceful people at Lafayette Square, 15 minutes before the curfew, they asked 3 times for people to disperse. Nobody dispersed, and there were incidents against police officers. So what? I mean, it's 15 minutes before the curfew the D.C. mayor imposed upon the people of D.C. because everything was so peaceful. Why do you impose curfews to begin with? So it makes no sense. Yeah, were there peaceful protests? Of course. But they made that, they tried and failed, by the way, to make that into like the biggest story ever. Everyone's like, whatever. And the church was set ablaze. So it's like, you have $1 billion in property loss, and you have David Dorn and and 15 other people who've lost their lives. But David Dorn is a 77-year-old former St. Louis police captain, a black man who lost his life at 2:30 in the morning, defending the business of his friend. And it was on Facebook Live apparently, and nobody cared on the left. And it just shows you everything the left touches, like every movement, they don't care. They're trying to I shouldn't say nobody cared, but like the only people talking about it are conservatives or people who vote Trump supporters. And it's not about, look, there are people who lost their lives who oppose Trump. The whole point is the loss of life is horrendous. Anyone who lost their life, there's like the Breitbart wrote about it. But it's like the only thing they try to say is it's peaceful. Everything's peaceful. Everything's peaceful. You can't say anything else. It's like, no, it wasn't entirely peaceful. And furthermore, there was 10,000 people who've been arrested, about 15 people who've lost their lives, and $1 billion in property damage. So how did this help the country? We already knew what that Minneapolis police officer did was horrendous and against the law. We already knew that as a society. And there should have been legislation after Eric Garner. But Democrats didn't find it politically feasible. Anthony Andrea! How is it that G-Dub is viewed as the worst POTUS in modern history, and Romney was viewed as a quitter who ran out of gas? Trump will win without them. Exactly, Anthony. Hidden for time. Thank you again, Hidden for time. Exactly, Anthony. Trump's going to win without them. Actually, I'll even add on to your awesome point. Trump will win specifically because he's not getting. Can you imagine if George W. Bush supported Trump? It would be very embarrassing for me. Very embarrassing. Because then, the basis of why I support President Trump is that he's the antithesis of George W. Bush. So thank God, from my perspective, that Bush wants nothing to do with Trump, which is great. I want nothing to do with Bush. Milty Friedman! HA, have a bag of sticky on me in these troubled times. Amen, bro. And let's pray for this country. Milty Friedman, God bless you. Thank you so very much. And Milty Friedman, thank you so very much. Very kind of you. Very, very kind of you, Milty. Thank you. Uncle Milty. Milty Friedman, thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it. Anthony, hidden for time, thank you. And then they want to defund. Okay, this is the funny thing. It's like, what's taken place the past 3 months, 4 months, has cemented Trump's reelection. It is only a matter of time before Biden jumps into the reflecting pool without any clothes on. Enjoy the visual before you go to bed. Enjoy the visual. Do you understand? You have a situation where Joe Biden just recently stated 10 to 15% of Americans are not good people. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a psychosis on the left. They feel that they're ordained, and they feel that they're qualified to tell you whether or not you're a good person. The hilarious thing is that, A, I don't care what anyone thinks of me, especially on the left, because you're talking about a bastion of immorality. On many, I'm not just talking about, I'm speaking about actions, like for example, blaming Russia for your loss in an election is completely unethical and immoral. Okay? Especially since they don't have any evidence. They're just moderate to highly confident. And then they fall back to appeals for to authority. Well, but everyone agrees. Well, who cares? You have no evidence. And they literally outsourced the whole thing. Clinton did not purchase a Steele dossier to go after her direct political rival to help Biden. Do you think Clinton, first of all, you can't find anywhere where Clinton said, Madam Secretary says, I'm endorsing Joe Biden for president. She's never stated those words. It was always, the endorsement was hilarious. It was like, I'm here to endorse you. For what? But Joe Biden says 10 to 15% of Americans are just not very good people. That's about 49 million people. 15%? You get to 20, it's 1 out of every 5 Americans. Just not a good person? Okay. I mean, this hubris, when they lose again, what are they going to do? They will literally implode. Their self-image is going to take a massive, massive dump. Their self-image will be the dump. Could you imagine what's going to happen in November 3rd? I mean, be here on this channel. Be here all month, year. And H.A. Goodman's other channel. And formerly Bizarro World Goodman, H.A. Goodman's hyperbole translator. I mean, can you imagine? It's going to be absolutely hilarious. 10 to 15% deplorables, and then what was the Mitt Romney comment? 74%. So, I mean, it's gone down from 74% to 10%, but whatever. The whole point is you're talking about failed career politicians. And you don't think that Joe Biden is a failed politician, but 8 years of vice president, he's there specifically because of his... He didn't become President Obama's vice president because he voted alongside Bush or wrote the crime bill. It was because he was an amiable person that, he had been in Congress for a long time and people knew him, and he was an amiable, salt-of-the-earth person, and he had a good shtick going on. That was a really good routine. Unfortunately, Tara Reade, the allegations against Joe Biden, if you look, she's the only person who filed a police report. Nobody's ever filed a police report. No woman has ever filed a police report against Kavanaugh or Trump. Furthermore, there was a 1993 call-in that would have been part of every Democrat's ringtone had it been the other way around. But they're going to see every single crisis, and social distancing has gone out the window as the brick went through the window. So everything that Democrats touch, every single thing that Democrats touch dissolves into hypocrisy and disingenuous public relations stunts. And it hurts the movement. So if you're going to attach yourself to, or if you're going to think that because liberal Democrats have adopted any movement, you think that's a good thing, they will jettison any movement instantly. Instantly. For African American voters and black voters who did not vote Democrat, you want to know the reasoning the Democrats said? Well, Russians targeted them more than anyone else. Why would Russia fear the Democratic Party? Why? Because they want 80% more of uranium capacity? Why? Because they want to hack into every single possible, I guess 80, hello. They want to, they want to give Bill Clinton more speaking gigs. Oh, I just loved when Vladimir gave me a good time at his dacha outside Moscow. It was so fun. Oh, yeah, we're so tough on the Russians. Yay. I mean, they get away with everything. It's pretty unbelievable. They get away with everything. So, Joe Biden says 10 to 15% of Americans aren't good people, aren't very good people. This is from Biden, who was accused of horrendous allegations by Tara Reade that are far more credible than something happened a million years ago. We don't know where, we don't know when, and then everyone, again, was apoplectic, hysterical, rabid, fuming, seething, maniacal. All they do, this is the thing, they're selling emotion. They're not selling ideas. They're not even debating ideas. They're selling emotion. They're living off emotion, and they're living off mythology. They create this myth of President Trump. If you look at Trump's speeches, they're beautifully written, but they come with a point. But he said, I am an ally of all peaceful protesters. They didn't bring that up. In the Law and Order comment, the same sentence was, I'm also an ally of all peaceful protesters. They cannot mention a man who is the epitome of heroism in David Dorn, a 77-year-old black man, the epitome of bravery and courage and honor at 2:30 in the morning, going to defend his friend's business. And you have a situation, ladies and gentlemen, where the left is insidious. The media is like, the way they've treated this has been completely vile. They hardly mentioned David Dorn and the 14, 15 other people who lost their lives, many of whom did not like Trump. But to mention the inconvenient reality would be to do away with their absurd spin. They cannot give you the actual, accurate assessment of what's going on. And it's like, they say, well, people are upset because, the property damage and the, the mayhem and the chaos, people are upset. Okay, so if you have a bad day, or if there are if you have a bad day, do you take it out on society? If you have a bad life, do you take it out on society? That's generally does not happen. And you have to ask yourself a question. If that's what we're about as a society, justifying chaotic behavior based on historical or based on injustices, that won't stop with what this current crisis. No country, there's not a country in the world that doesn't have numerous historical injustices that its citizens have experienced. The Democratic Party, after Eric Garner, should have done something, but they didn't. The Democratic Party didn't because it wasn't there was no political utility at that point. They had an election where they're always balancing. Like, you look at Val Demings as an example. She was the police chief. She was a police chief. And her police department was accused of excessive force in numerous cases. Democrats, the biggest hypocrites on the planet. They always play this public relations. Well, we're tough, but we're kind. So they want to appeal to Republicans in some way because the notion is that the Republicans are tough, but they're not kind. But we're tough and we're kind. And then you have Hollywood, and everything Hollywood touches just turns to Bandini. Even movies. Tell me the last movie that's been amazing. Aria, love your Slick Willie impersonation. Aria, I want to thank you so much for your continued feedback and for always watching, Aria. You are a wonderful human being. And I just want to tell everybody I feel your pain. And I'm just waiting for Madam Secretary to swoop in and save us from Biden. Anthony Andrea! Anthony! HJ, have you heard about the current blueprint of the left being compared to the... I haven't really. I haven't. I heard it mentioned. But Anthony, I haven't. But I'll say this: this willingness to legitimize. They're trying to legitimize the destruction of businesses. In many cases, black-owned businesses. This makes no sense. And it's not going to... this is the thing. Forget it. Let's say everything was justified. Let's say the current crisis was justified. And then the economic shutdown that was self-induced, which is one of the most absurd things we've ever done as a country. Let's say they're all justified. People aren't happy. The media, okay, these polls are a reflection of media. But then when you dig a little deeper into the polls, you get the reality and the truth. When people say, like, nationwide, Trump is 10 points below Biden. That's because they'll ask the question, if the election were today, would you vote for Trump? Well, if the election were today is not an accurate assessment of what you would do on November 3rd. And it just isn't, for many reasons. But if the election were today, doesn't take into account the apoplectic, hysterical, maniacal, seething, fuming, frothing at the mouth negativity from media. The fact that Trump is anywhere above 40% is a triumph. These polls, okay, the pollsters, they run under the assumption that media does not influence public opinion or does not shape or create an image about Trump that people latch onto. But when you look at the enthusiasm gap, yeah, there's 40% enthusiasm, 40%, 35 to 40% enthusiasm gap. So people want to work and people don't want society to crumble. And they're not blaming Trump for this. That's what Democrats are losing on this issue also. They're going to lose. But they're going to fight and claw every step of the way. Every single step of the way. Every single step of the way. And, you look at, I'm looking at this Hillary Clinton policy, Hillary's vision for America. During her 2016 campaign for president, Hillary and her team laid out a comprehensive, progressive vision for America's future. Well, there you go. It's a progressive vision. It's a progressive vision. She's a progressive. There you go. There you go. They have consistently what they've done, ladies and gentlemen. George W. Bush won't support Donald Trump. This is the Texas Tribune. Good. Trump's use of the military backfired? Really? Where? This is Robert Reich article in The Guardian. How did it backfire? How? The Pentagon ordered. We found out now it's the Pentagon ordered. This is such a failed spin, because people see there's $1 billion in property loss around the country, and over 10,000 arrested, and about 15 people who lost their lives. So, whose lives were taken. None of this is Trump's fault. And they focus on one incident where it was 15 minutes before the curfew, and the curfew was implemented because the protests were not peaceful. Why were there curfews? Nobody really answers that question. Very simple question. And you don't see, like, then you see Hollywood, the duplicitous, disingenuous celebrities, like, oh, we're going to pay for bail. Really? Why weren't you marching with these people? Why weren't you marching with these people? That's interesting that you didn't march with these people. So, and you still have a great many Bernie Sanders supporters saying, oh, you know what? Bernie can still do it. They've all become me, but the difference is that Bernie could have done it in 2016 if he, whatever. That whole thing was, they did themselves in, and they blamed. In 2015, I said that Clinton would lose, and she did. And I'm telling you, Clinton's going to be nominee and lose again. This will be the biggest political call of all time. When Trump says law and order, like, he just goes ahead and he just tweets out, like, law and order. And it's like, they don't people don't get, they don't understand that they don't understand that this is actually, like, that actually helps cement Trump's reelection. They don't get it. Beyond the infinite. Remember on election day, 2016, the polls analysis had Hillary winning a landslide until the votes were counted. Exactly, beyond the infinite. What you're going to see also is, I don't think the Democrats will be able to cheat beyond the infinite, because you're going to see the enthusiasm gap kick in. Media will become more apoplectic, but you tell an American citizen they can't do something, they're going to do it. Beyond the infinite. Great point. Fifth Estate. If you want news, don't be shy, H.A. Gimme what I want. It has to be a lyrics that I should know. Fifth Estate, thank you. My mind's not working right now. Fifth Estate, thank you so very, very much. Fifth Estate, thank you. Beyond the infinite, thank you. Yeah, you look, ladies and gentlemen, there are so many people who are voting for President Trump that you would not like, that are voting for President Trump that you don't know because they're not saying they are. That was the issue with polls. They're not saying they are. And then you have, like, everyone from Kanye West to Herschel Walker to Jim Brown supports President Trump. You had 14% of African American and black men voting for Trump in 2016. 14%. You didn't know that number. Now, the Democratic Party makes a big deal. They say, "Oh, well, we have 90% of the African American and black vote." Well, according to 2016, it was 14 to 15%. That could go to 20% because the media spin's not working. It's just not working. You're going to see more Latino, Hispanic Americans and Latinos. I can tell you right now, as a Jewish American, there are going to be a lot more Jewish people voting for President Trump. A lot more. Asian American support is increasing for President Trump. Increasing big time, especially also because of the beginning of détente between North and South Korea. and Trump being the first president to step foot in North and South Korea. So, I mean, they're really they're making the same mistakes and even greater mistakes. Nissanon! I watched half of it. You debated the wrong person. Nissanon, thank you. Look, I respect you and I appreciate your support. I do appreciate your support. I was told that he was the leader, the top dog, the main man of that whole thing. So Nissanon, thank you. But anyone I debated, it would have been, the 85 Bears versus Jerry Nadler's touch football team, which is basically what's going to happen this election. Nissanon, you're very kind, and thank you so very much for your support. Thank you. Old School Dad Man! Thank you, Nissanon. Thank you. Old School Dad Man, how about we defend the politicians with we defend the politicians with term limits? I agree with term limits. I think there should be term limits. Old School Dad Man, thank you. Old School Dad Man, thank you so much. It'll be really interesting, Old School Dad Man and Nissanon, everyone here. Jill Biden and Hillary Clinton campaigned virtually in Missouri for Joe Biden. What? Yet, Clinton never said anything specifically about Biden during that whole thing. So it's like, it's just hilarious. Why isn't Biden campaigning in Missouri? What's he doing? What is he doing in the basement that's so busy? And then they said, no, Trump's a bunker president. Like, well, if there's violence outside the White House, what do you want him to do? Any president would have been taken to any secure location. And furthermore, Biden has been stuck in his basement literally forever. So, and then he's wearing the mask and he's not wearing the mask. With them, they're always all over the place with the public relations. The problem with Democrats is they're getting the wrong information. The people giving them information as to like, oh, well, this is what like the American people want. Like, they're totally off. They're getting caught up in their own like absurd news stories. So they're not really they're not getting accurate information about what is important to the average American, even especially the Democratic Party too. Arya Lee, how bad do you think it'll get before November? Pretty bad, Arya. Pretty bad. I mean, they're gonna fabricate something. They're gonna fabricate something. Who knows what'll happen? The thing is, it's not going to work out. It's not going to work out because I said favorability ratings in 2016. That was the big issue, and then enthusiasm gap in this election. The economy and the enthusiasm gap are two huge issues. And that's why it's actually such a benefit to have George W. Bush not vote for Trump. That's why. You have a situation where if you're a Trump supporter, you don't want George W. Bush to vote for Trump. You don't. You absolutely do not. You absolutely do not. Exactly, Arya, exactly. Hip shot shivers, exactly. They don't see, the way media looks at it is they say, well, look at all these people are so upset. And look, God bless Black Lives Matter. I think that you know, after Eric Garner, the Democratic Party, somebody, Republicans, anybody should have talked about legislation or made this an election issue, because Eric Garner lost his life his life was taken from him. He was murdered in 2014 in New York City. That would have saved George Floyd's life, but Democrats didn't do that. And so now they're taking advantage instantly. 3 days before George Floyd was murdered, 3 days before, Biden made the most horrendous comment, deliberately tanking his campaign, because Hillary Clinton is going to be nominee. I will have made the biggest political call of all time. If you look at, he said, "Oh well, if you have a problem deciding who you're for, you ain't black," and so that was a deliberate tanking of his campaign, because that's what's going to happen. Come August, they're going to have to really vote, and they're not going to vote for Biden. They're going to vote for the person who almost won, but the Russians stole it from her. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very, very much. Subscribe, people, to H.A. Goodman's other channel and to H.A. Goodman's Hyperbole Translator. I'm going to be back up on both of those channels tomorrow with new content every single day. It's been very bizarre the past couple of days. So I've been focusing on the live streams and uploads on this channel. But those channels are up and running, of course. Over 15,000 on subs on H.A. Goodman's other channel, and almost 5,000 subs on H.A. Goodman's Hyperbole Translator. So check that out. Please share my article. Even still, whenever people think this is going to be the absolute biggest political call, please share my articles in the Huffington Post. Hillary Clinton 2020 is a reality. Get ready for 8 years of Trump. And Hillary Clinton, not Biden, will be nominee. The nominee has to be voted on. And the DNC spokesperson actually stated, we're not officially nominating Biden to take Trump. So, Gonzalez 131, hello. So, please go ahead, subscribe to those channels, share those articles on Twitter and Facebook. Ladies and gentlemen, God bless you. Stay safe. Have a great, great evening. I'll see you tomorrow morning. God bless you, everyone. Thank you so much to my super chat. Thank you again.